What is up, guys? I'm your friendly neighborhood web war fanatic, and today I want to talk about Fantasy Flight Games and Marvel Champions and why I think the future is bright. And I'm going to give you guys 5 reasons why I think that the community perception, these past few years regarding Fantasy Flight Games and Marvel Champions is kind of at an all-time low. I feel like these 5 dominoes just happen to like fall, around the same time, and all that, kind of stacked up made it seem like, Marvel Champs is dying. That's why a lot of people in the community, are selling their collections. And we've seen a lot of that, on the Marvel Champion subreddit and on the Facebook group. But I think that despite that, we actually have some evidence that Marvel Champs is doing very well. Okay, so the first thing that happened that really made a lot of people in the Marvel Champions community, myself included, worried about Fantasy Flight Games and the future of the game was whenever Embracer saddled Asmodee with a bunch of debt here. So let's check out this article here. And let me see, this happened, around April 22nd, 2024. So Asmodee acquired Fantasy Flight Games in 2014, and then the Embracer Group acquired Asmodee in 2022. And basically, sometime in 2024, the Embracer Group announced plans to separate into 3 distinct companies, and then they will be leaving Asmodee with some baggage here, like a bunch of loans. So, I don't really know too much about the financial stuff and the legal jargon. I'm not a financial expert or anything like that. Shouts to a lot of people in the Marvel Champs community that are financial experts that try to tell us, what this means. But this definitely did not seem to be like a good thing, right? It seemed to be a little bit more negative than positive. And at this time, a lot of people who were fans of Fantasy Flight Games and Marvel Champions were pretty worried, about this news. So back on Reddit here, I do want to mention that there was a lot of positivity. Like there were, financial experts saying why this was potentially a good thing for Fantasy Flight Games and Asmodee. However, despite that, there was some negativity about it. And shout outs to this person, O Alos Lalos. They said that I have no clue what will follow, but people in other board gaming subreddits aren't really optimistic about this development. And most of them said that in the best case scenario, we will see lower quality products for higher prices, and some lower profile projects and games published by Fantasy Flight Games will probably be abandoned. A few people even claimed that Fantasy Flight Games would go bankrupt in the next few years, and I definitely saw, comments about this as well. But this to me was kind of like the first big domino to fall, in the past year or so that really started this Marvel Champions is dying and Fantasy Flight Games has fallen off type of thing. The second big event here, pertains only to Marvel Champions, but Marvel Champions, is a Fantasy Flight Games game. And that happened in November 2024, so a little bit later that same year, where basically Caleb Graced, one of the lead designers of Marvel Champions, was retiring from the game and moving on to other games. He's still in Fantasy Flight Games, but basically working on other projects. And this was huge news because Caleb Grace was not only a lot of people's favorite designer, but he's actually the last remaining OG designer for Marvel Champions that is still with the line. So whenever he announced his retirement right here, he looked back in this article, a lot of people were very, very worried, and they're like, oh man, like Nate French is already gone, Michael Boggs is already gone, and now finally Caleb Grace has left as well. But I do want to add that Tony Fanchi will be taking over as the lead designer for Marvel Champions, and a lot of people were also hopeful for Tony's designs because they've been pretty cool as well. And then also they're introducing 2 new designers to the team, Aaron Houghton and Frank Brooks here. So, even though Caleb was leaving, they're bringing in 2 new people, to kind of replace him. So a lot of people were thinking, if March James was, dying, why would they bring in more people? Like there's more designers now than before. And down here at the bottom of the article, it says Marvel Champions has been going strong for 5 years now, and it's not slowing down anytime soon. So Fantasy Flight Games was kind of reassuring the player base here, just letting us know that, we're not slowing down Marvel Champions. We're going to have more stuff for you guys. But of course, despite that, a lot of people in the community were not convinced, especially because, just a few months earlier, Embracer saddled Asmodee with all that debt. So Caleb announced that he would be leaving the line, on November 2024. So the next major event was the famous Fantasy Flight Games Fireside Chat here. And this came out on February 2025, so about 4 months after Caleb announced his retirement. And yeah, a lot of people did not like this fireside chat here. This was a live stream that Fantasy Flight Games had to announce the current and the legacy environments. This would be a new thing implemented for Marvel Champions. Not yet, but they're announcing that, about, next year, this would be incorporated into the game, where basically, instead of having, one environment for everything, they'll be splitting it, and a lot of the new supports, for cards will be more primarily focused for the current environment, which would be, the last 2 to 3 years of the game's life. And all the older products, like the oldest products from like Wave 1 and stuff, would not be supported and would not be reprinted. So a lot of those packs like Captain America and Doctor Strange that are currently out of print would not be reprinted, so a lot of new players would not be able to get access to them. And of course, a lot of people weren't happy about this news. They did also announce that they would be revisiting Heroes, so we could potentially get a new version of Captain America, and they afterwards did confirm that it would be like the same alter ego name, so it would be a different version of Steve Rogers' Captain America, which I think a lot of people were excited for, but at the same time, some people still wanted to play that older version. And I do want to also clarify that everything is always backwards compatible, right? So you can always play, those new scenarios with the oldest heroes, or those oldest scenarios you can still play, with the newest heroes. So everything still works with each other. It's just whenever they're designing new cards, they're going to really be looking at, the last 2 or 3 years for designing a card and seeing, how it fits into that whole card pool. And for the Marvel Champions community specifically, I would definitely say that this was, the biggest thing to where I really saw a change in the community, where tons of players was, just posting how they were quitting the game, how they were selling their collection, how they did not like this news, how disappointing it was, and even some awesome Marvel Champions content creators that I had the pleasure of working with decided that they would, stop making videos about Marvel Champions because of this news. Now, I'm not here to say whether this is a good thing or a bad thing for Fantasy Flight Games, but just the overall community perception, regarding this was pretty low. And at least for the online community, there was a lot of, negativity and people just announcing that they were quitting the game. So this announcement here was on February 6, 2025. Then a few months later, Fantasy Flight Games announced a new expansion, Civil War, here in June 2025. And a lot of people have actually been asking for a PvP mode in Marvel Champions, since the beginning of the game. And this box here introduced PvP for the first time in Marvel Champions, and it's coming out very, very soon for the US release. It's already been released globally, so a few players have already tried this out. But yeah, I mean, this had also a mixed reaction here because a lot of the Marvel Champions fan base, myself included, play this game primarily for co-op. So people were disappointed that we were getting a PvP mode here, and they thought that it would be taken away a part of the co-op version of the game. I do want to clarify that, this box, everything is also co-op. So all these heroes and villains you can play, in the regular co-op version. But you can just also do a PvP mode. And the only thing that's missing from this box is that there's one less scenario and there's no campaign mode, but it also introduces this whole entire PvP mode with a bunch of new modulars, and everything's just very modular with the scenarios as well. You can mix and match different main schemes and all of that. But yeah, once again, a lot of people posted online that they would not be buying the Civil War expansion, or that they're going to stop supporting Fantasy Flight Games and stop buying Marvel Champion stuff. And I had a poll on my channel asking my subscribers how you guys felt about PvP coming to Marvel Champions. 70% of people loved it, 27% were cautiously optimistic. I think that that's where I would fall as well. And then 49% of people said that it wasn't for them, but it can't hurt. So and then 6% did not like it. But yeah, I mean, about half the people didn't necessarily like PvP, but they also thought that it wouldn't really hurt the game, right? So I do think that my subscribers may be a little bit more positive than like the Marvel Champions subreddit, or like the different social media groups, just because everyone is consuming Marvel Champions content. So you guys probably feel like you can't get enough of Marvel Champions content. I feel the same way watching other YouTube videos about Marvel Champions. But yeah, it seems like a large portion of the Marvel Champions community isn't necessarily looking forward to the new expansion, and a smaller portion, just straight up don't like it at all and want to quit playing Marvel Champions, because of it. And here's a funny meme here that I saw on Reddit. Shoutouts to Monorail Pilot. He said the duality of the Marvel Champions community. So War Machine is an out of print pack that's very difficult to get now, and then some people will pay $80 for him and say, I can't believe I was able to find this hero pack. And then for this new Civil War expansion, which retails for like around $50, people are saying Hulkling, Tigra, these are like D-lister heroes, optional PvP. I'm gonna skip this whole entire wave. So yeah, I thought that this was funny. I think this kind of sums up a lot of the posts. I'm not gonna say that that was the majority of the community, and I'm definitely not judging here. I just thought that this was a funny meme that kind of summarized a lot of what the online community was saying, about the game, during this time. I know if it were me and Spider-Man was the out of print hero pack, now going for $80, I would still much rather, get Spider-Man than pay 50 bucks for like the Civil War expansion just because I'm a big Spider-Man fan. But yeah, this was definitely a time where Marvel Champions players, myself included, we were pretty worried about the future of the game. And then the fifth and final like big thing that happened was a message to our community by Fantasy Flight Games. This is on their Facebook page here. And basically they announced here that they are implementing a price adjustment of approximately 15% for products sold in the United States, effectively starting on July 15th. This increase only impacts the LCGs and board games that we produce. So the LCGs including, Marvel Champions. Fantasy Flight Games did say here that it was due to ongoing increases in production and import costs beyond our control. But this is also kind of combined with, in the last few years, there have been a lot of delays in releases. Like the Civil War expansion has been delayed, in the US. The Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was also delayed. And I know that the Iceman Hero Pack was very delayed, for the UK and a lot of people in Europe. And just like all the other events I mentioned, I am not an expert on this. I can't really speak towards the reasons why. But I know that, a lot of people in the community were upset by this, and they're upset, by the delays and just any and all problems regarding shipping. And a lot of people thought that this was not a good sign for the future of the game. Okay, so these are the 5 big things why I feel like the perception, regarding Fantasy Flight Games and Marvel Champions in particular, weren't that great. However, I do think that we do have, some good news to look forward to. And do want to clarify, I like to cope, guys, so maybe I'm coping here. I love Marvel Champions, so I want to see the game do well. But I honestly do believe that we have, some evidence that the future may be bright. So this was a video that I made a few weeks ago on September 18th. And basically, someone on Reddit, huge shout out to Tito, who posted this. He asked, how well is Marvel Champions selling? And we saw a lot of anecdotes of people, talking about, their community, their local communities, and how the game was doing. And some store owners also chimed in saying how sales have been steady and trending slightly up as we introduce the game to new players, all the time. And then in this video, I asked you guys for y'all's, anecdotal evidence, and a lot of people also posted a bunch of positive stuff just in their communities, how they were introducing new players to Marvel Champions, how they were seeing new players, get into the game. So obviously this is just all anecdotal, so we can only take that with a grain of salt. But we have some more concrete evidence here. Huge shout out to Professor Kid, who commented on the video, and he said that he happened to notice that on the Asmodee online store, Trickster Takeover is now showing as sold out. So Trickster Takeover, this new scenario pack came out on August 15th, and this comment was, on September 18th. So we look on the online store here for Asmodee. Trickster Takeover is sold out here. So obviously, we don't know if, they were selling less packs of Trickster Takeover, but only 1 month after it got released, it sold out. So, I think that's pretty good, right, guys? Let me know down in the comments. Do you think that that's, positive news for the game? I know that for me personally, whenever I found out about this from Professor Kid, I was very, very excited to see that, new Marvel Champions products were selling out right away. Obviously, you still can get Trickster Takeover from your local game stores. It's just from the Asmodee website. It's sold out. So I think probably most people are getting it from there, but you can still get it from like Game Nerds or like whatever, online game store that you shop from. You can also get from eBay, I believe. Like a lot of sellers are selling it on there. And then the final bit of positive news I have for Marvel Champions players and positive news about the future of this game is this interview here with Caleb Grace and D20 Woodworking. Huge shout out to D20 Woodworking. If you guys have not seen this interview, I highly recommend that you guys go watch it. It has some insights into Fantasy Flight Games and how the sales for some of their games are doing. We don't know any exact numbers, like exact details, but this part that Caleb was talking about right here really helped reassure me as a Marvel Champions player. So basically, he's going to talk about the sales of some of the games for Fantasy Flight Games.
I mean, the sales aren't even close. Lord of the Rings was a big hit for FFG, at its time.
Yeah.
Right. And then Netrunner blew that away, or X-Wing. These games, quadrupled, Lord of the Rings sales.
Mm-hmm.
And now Marvel Champions has quadrupled like those sales. As far as like Netrunner did great for us, Marvel's done way more. So is Arkham now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there you guys heard it. Like Marvel Champions is selling very, very well. And I think that a lot of the negativity about Fantasy Flight Games is that they're making less of like a bunch of new games now, and that they're just really doing Marvel Champions and Star Wars Unlimited and like focusing more on like, expansions for already existing games. Actually, I believe Caleb explains more of that here.
Um, and so, when you're looking at, well, we're paying this designer the same amount of money as this designer. This is our return over here. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like, well, time to wrap this up and move 'em over here. And so it was just like everything aligned.
So my takeaway from what Caleb is saying here is that Fantasy Flight Games, isn't dying. There's just, less new games, but it's because they want to focus more, on Marvel Champions and games that are making more money. And obviously, I think that that sucks for a lot of players who like, those other games. I'm not here to say whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I know that if I was a big fan of Netrunner or X-Wing, I would, be kind of disappointed and sad that, they're not continuing those games. But unfortunately, I'm a Marvel Champions player, so I mean, that's like the main game that I play, so I'm happy about that. But of course, it would be great if every single game could keep on getting a bunch of support and all the fans of those games could keep on playing it. But the point for this video is that I don't think that Marvel Champions is dying, and I don't think that Fantasy Flight Games, has fell off or anything like that. I just think that it may seem like it's a bit more slow because maybe Fantasy Flight Games is releasing less articles for like a less variety of games, but just doing more stuff, for Marvel Champions and the games that are selling well. I also think that a lot of people selling their collections or people announcing that they're going to quit, on the social media platforms also contributes to the overall perception of the game. But maybe and hopefully that's not representative of the entire community. That's just my personal opinion here of why I think that Marvel Champions is going strong and why I think it just doesn't seem like it, in the online community. I hope you guys liked this video. I hope that this reassures anyone's doubts towards the future of Marvel Champions and Fantasy Flight Games. Let me know down in the comments, do you agree with me or do you think that I'm just coping? Hopefully Marvel Champions has a really bright future, and I'll see you guys all in the next video.